We're here in the Radio Bible Hour studio today with Reverend Jack Bratton. Jack's been with the Radio Bible Hour now for many years, and he is the producer of the Radio Bible Hour radio program. And Jack, we're glad to have a chance to talk with you.
Thank you, Don. It's good to be here today.
You're usually behind the microphone producing the radio programs. And would you tell us a little bit about how you came to be involved with the Radio Bible Hour?
Well, back several years ago, I was at a station that started doing some religious broadcasting, and I went and asked them, could I put on a few of the preachers, you know. The first one I thought about was J. Harold Smith. This was like in 1971, and they said, sure. So I went and called the office there and began to talk to Dr. Smith, got him on the phone, and offered him some time on the radio station, which was in Gaffney, South Carolina. And, of course, that was a 100,000-watt station, and he was really interested in coming on a station in that area because, of course, Woodruff was his hometown, and we had a great coverage of Woodruff and Greenville. And so that began a personal, close friendship with Dr. Smith. Mm-hmm. But actually, the relation goes back earlier than that because he knew my dad and my grandfather, and both of them being ministry. And so it went a long ways back up as I was a child, you know, with Dr. Smith, hearing him preach in different places, and then having the relationship on the air with the Radio Bible Hour. And the Radio Bible Hour was just a program that I enjoyed promoting, whether it was at the time that the Radio Bible Hour had purchased time or just as my time as a DJ playing gospel music and reminding people that the Radio Bible Hour was on the air and promoting it that way. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we began. And then in 1986, Dr. Smith moved to Newport, Tennessee. And he and I were talking, and some of the personnel weren't coming to Newport, and he mentioned that he needed someone to produce the program. And so that's how I started in 1986 of producing the program of the Radio Bible Hour.
Wow. Well, you've been with us for a long, long time, and producing the radio program has its own challenges, I know.
It does.
And what are some of the things that you have to do to prepare the broadcast? We generally prepare it a month or so in advance, and what are some of the challenges that you find in your work here?
Well, I do some of the editing because some of the messages by Dr. Smith were recorded a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure they're current as far as who the President of the United States is today and things like that. Theologically, you don't have to edit J. Harold Smith, you know. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. But I like to go back into the archives and pull out the older messages and listen. And I get a lot of people that meet me in churches and places and say, you know, I thought that message was recorded yesterday, you know, because it does sound so current in the things. When he goes into some of the prophetic things, as he looks forward to, it's just as up to date. I mean, you know, that's the way the Bible is, though.
Right. Yeah.
And so then what I do, Don, is prior to the beginning of the broadcast, I sit down and I go through this giant notebook of which you are aware of, and pick out the sermons and look and try to pick out the things that I feel like that God would have us to play in the future and go back and pull those sermons out. And sometimes they're still on cassette, some are on DAT tape, and we're trying to put as many as we can on CD for archiving. And so it's just wonderful, but every day is a new day. I never get tired of doing what I'm doing.
Well, that's great. And in addition to your expertise in radio and broadcasting, you're also an ordained minister of the gospel.
Yes, I am.
And a bivocational minister yourself. You're very often out preaching in one of the local churches here most weekends.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives you a special sense of the importance of the Radio Bible Hour and the gospel messages and so forth, coming from the point of view of being a preacher as well as a radio producer.
Well, Don, in my ministry, there's two distinct things that happen. There's two distinct calls into the ministry. One was to preach. I remember that night, you know, when God called me to preach. The other was a little more subtle, but as a child, I knew that God had something for me to do in radio. And I could take you to the place today. In fact, I own the house where I promised God as a small child, if He would anoint my voice for radio, I would use it for His glory. Mm-hmm. And so that's two callings, and God used them both together in the church, in the pulpit, and then on the radio to be what I thought that God wanted me to be and give it 100% of myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great, and you've certainly got a wonderful voice for radio, as everybody can tell. Well, Jack, I just want to thank you for joining us for a few minutes today.
Glad to do it.
Talk about your role here at Radio Bible Hour. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Don.